All right, welcome to this training where we are going to go ahead and help you set up your first workflow automation. Now, it's going to be important for you to understand that what we're about to do right now is we're going to help you and you're going to follow along step by step. This is an action step. You want to make sure that you are pausing the training as you go through this so that way you can acquire the skill with us inside of this training section. Is we're going to go ahead and help you get your first automation set up in general so that way you have an idea of how all of this works. And then what's going to happen is that later on in this training, because remember, we're right now in the automation training, right? Right now we might be on like this training section. A couple training sections down, we're actually going to help you get specific automations set up because in fact, we already have a lot of those built out for you. So that way you don't have to build them out from scratch. So when we say specific, we're talking about consultation, calendar reminders, emails, SMS, all of that kind of stuff is already built out for you. But for right now, we're going to go ahead and walk you through a general automation that you can then use to be able to test and get an idea of how all of this works. Now, I'm going to go ahead and mention this is that part of this setup will and potentially may include text messaging, okay? Now, in order to do that, you need to make sure that you do have your phone number already approved. And so if your phone number and SMS text messaging is not yet approved, then what you're going to do is you're only going to test the email portion of what it is that I walk you through, okay? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to do my best to try and avoid SMS text messaging as much as possible in general, so that way even for you who may not have your A2P registration for your phone number yet approved, you don't have to worry about it. But just in case, I'm letting you know, if we do end up using SMS text messaging, you want to make sure that that is not something you use if your A2P registration is not yet approved. Okay, so let's go ahead and jump right in. We are going to go ahead and talk about creating the workflow automation as well as testing the workflow automation. Again, remember, this is an action step for you to make sure that you are pausing this training section and then also going in and tinkering and clicking the buttons with me as I go ahead and do this with you. So let's go ahead and start this from scratch. What we are going to do is we are going to go over to the automations tab inside of your actual business platform client kit. You're going to go over to workflows, and then we're going to go ahead and click on create a workflow. Okay. And then we're going to go ahead and click on start from scratch right over here. And I'm just going to go ahead and name this from the get-go so that way it's easy for us to be able to know what it is that we're going to be testing. So this is going to be test workflow via training, right? So I'm going to go ahead and kind of name it that. And then what we're going to do, and we do have all of this instructions inside of the guide as well. So what we're going to do is we're actually going to go ahead and set this trigger up. And this trigger is going to be appointment, and this is going to be appointment status, okay? Now, what this means is that when this trigger is only going to fire when an appointment status inside of the client kit system has actually been, we're going to add a filter, and this filter is going to be that the event is normal, and that is going to be inside of a calendar. Whoopsie daisies, what happened there? Let me actually just go ahead and do this one more time. It's probably because I was zoomed in there. So this is going to be is in the calendar, and then you're going to select what is the calendar that you want to test. So in this case, I am just going to go ahead and test the one-on-one consult NutriFit calendar. And then this is going to be my trigger, okay? So whenever an appointment status is booked inside of this calendar, okay, regardless of what appointment it is, it's going to go ahead and fire this specific workflow. I'm then going to go ahead and click on save trigger. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and add next up here, I'm going to go ahead and add an email, okay? So we're going to go ahead and send email. And again, all of this is documented inside of the actual guide as well, is that right over here, I'm going to go ahead and send an email. And the email that I'm going to send is going to be from name. This is going to be from, let's just set it from NutriFit Wellness, okay? Now the from email here, I am going to go ahead and put in our domain email, which at this point you should already have set up. So it's going to be support at, and this is going to be in this case, nutrifitwellness.com. The subject line I'm going to go ahead and put is going to be, this is going to be, let's say, test workflow from training. Okay, awesome. And then what I'm going to go ahead and do is I'm going to go ahead and type a message. So hi, and then guess what I'm going to do? I'm going to add a custom value on here. So I'm going to put custom value, contact. I'm going to put the contact's first name. So it's going to say hi contact, comma. This is, and I can add in another one. So I can say, you know what, I want to put in, you know, for example, I want to put in who the user is. So let's say, for example, I want to put, this is full name. So this will put my username on here. So I'm on right now as John Doe. So it's going to go put, this is John Doe, right? So whoever the username is. So you could go ahead and mess around with that. And then your appointment is on, and then I can go over here and add a custom value. Again, go over here. I can go in and put appointment, and then I can put start date and time. Beautiful. Talk to you then. All right. Now, over here inside of the builder, you will see that it does allow us to have the custom values there. Let me see if I can zoom in for you and show you a little bit more right here, right? So it does allow us to be able to have custom values here. After that, this is going to be trigger links. This is a different type of automation. We're not going to walk you through that right now because we don't use it as much, but if we do use it, then you will see that show up inside of the community. If somebody else decides to innovate on it or figure out a use case for it, then we're going to learn that in the community, and then probably down the road later on, we'll probably make a training for it. This is the undo button, the redo button. We got bold, italicized, underline. We got the font type here. We have the font size right over here. We can put also the heading if it's a paragraph or a heading over here. This is going to be the add line height. So this is going to be the line height between the text over here. This is going to be the text color, background color. If you wanted to add a bullet point, a number list over here, this is going to be the text alignment. Right over here, it looks like this is going to be further. It looks like this is going to be more formatting options on there. If you wanted to add a link, if you wanted to add an image, and then also if you wanted to change the source code, that's going to be there, as well as adding an attachment there. Now, you could also go ahead and send yourself a test email. If you really wanted to go ahead and test this out, you could do that. In this case, I am not going to do that, but I just want you to know that that is available there. Okay, so that's going to be there. Then obviously we do have statistics that allows us to see, how many people open up this email and all that kind of stuff. We're not going to worry about that right now. I'm going to go ahead and click on save action, which is awesome. Now, what I want to go ahead and do is I do want to also go ahead and explain to you the difference between what are standard trigger events and premium trigger events. Okay, so right over here, you'll see this crown icon for some of these actions, right? Now, these are called premium actions. Okay, these crown ones over here. So these are the actions. And then there's also premium triggers. So I believe there's only a couple. So this is an inbound webhook. This is a premium trigger right here. So premium triggers are advanced triggers offered by the Workflow Builder. These are going to be, if you remember, something called usage-based features. Usage-based features means that they rely on some sort of external provider, and so there is a nominal small cost to use them because, for example, they do use something external, right? So for example, ChatGPT, there is an API. If you don't know what an API is, a little bit fancy speak for kind of some software stuff, and there is a cost that ClientKit has to pay in order to be able to use those things. And so that's the reason why these are going to be premium, and then everything that doesn't have that crown icon is going to be a standard trigger, which is completely free. That's just automatically included because that's not something that ClientKit relies on to an external provider or a service. Okay, so I did just want to go ahead and explain that to you so that way you're familiar with the difference between standard actions and triggers and premium actions and triggers as well. And the beautiful thing about this is that the premium ones, that actually replaces other softwares like Zapier or Make and stuff like that because you can do everything inside of ClientKit very, very nicely. Beautiful. So that is going to be what you go ahead and actually pause and set up. Okay, so you want to make sure you set it up exactly like this because I'm going to walk you through how to go ahead and test this exact workflow together. Okay, so what you want to do is you want to make sure that you actually go in and set this up exactly like this. Then what you want to do is you want to go over to settings. And again, this is all documented inside of the actual guide as well, is you want to go ahead and allow reentry and stop on response. So we're going to go ahead and allow reentry. And then that way, if somebody actually responds to some of the emails and stuff, we can go ahead and stop on response. In fact, I'm going to actually leave this off. So actually going to go ahead and put right here, this is going to be off. Okay. And then in terms of the communication, we are going to go ahead and put this at, let's just put this at contact time zone, specific time. Let's do 8 a.m. to, let's just do 7 p.m. over here, and we're going to do turn on Sunday and Saturday, so that way it sends it on all 7 days. From email, now this is going to be the standard. Now we have gone ahead and actually set this up inside of the actual action as well, but from email, I'm going to go ahead and set this up here as well. This is going to be Nutrifit Wellness, and then this is going to be support at nutrifitwellness.com. Now, there are also custom values here. So let's say, for example, you wanted the sender to be, you put over here account, and you want it to be the standard account email that's on the account. You could do that as well, or you can manually type it for each of the workflows also. And then this, we're going to go ahead and just leave that off. Okay, beautiful. Now what we're going to do is I am going to make sure I hit save. It's always important to make sure you do hit save consistently because you don't want to lose the work that you have. And then we're also going to go ahead and turn this workflow on and then hit save one more time. So that way it does in fact save that this workflow is now going to be published. Now what we're going to go ahead and do is we're going to go ahead and actually test this workflow. So there's a couple different ways that you can actually test a workflow, okay? Now you can test a workflow by clicking on test workflow, and then you can select yourself or you can select a specific contact from your contact management system here, and then you can go ahead and do that. So that's going to be one way that you can test. However, the way that I want to go ahead and test this specific one, because this one is going to be whenever there is an appointment that is filed, right? So what I'm going to go ahead and do is I'm going to duplicate this tab right over here, and you want to follow along with me. Make sure that you're taking action. You're not being one of those failure uniform students who doesn't follow along. So, whoops, let me see. I moved a little bit quick there, okay? So let me show you what I just did right over there, right over here. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to come over here. I'm going to duplicate this tab. So right click on the tab inside of your browser. I'm going to click duplicate in your Chrome browser. From there, I'm then going to go ahead. It's going to duplicate this tab. I'm going to go back to workflows, okay? And then what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to go ahead and I'm going to book an appointment. Okay, so what we're going to do is, let's just say hypothetically, let's go over to calendars. I'm going to go ahead and select the trigger calendar that I know exists there. I'm going to go ahead and share. I'm going to copy this. I'm going to open this up into an incognito window, and I'm going to give you an example of, let's say somebody was to book an appointment on their side. And let's go ahead and see if that trigger actually fires, which is going to be pretty cool to see how all of this functions. Now, in case, I think right now, it's probably because of my internet and I'm recording. So I'm going to go ahead and just refresh here real quick, give it a second, make sure that it does actually show up here. And then when it actually loads over here, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and just select an appointment. Now, what you can do is you can actually enter in your information here. I'm not going to enter in my information because obviously I'm not going to go log into my personal things here on the video. However, you can enter in your personal information here and check and test to make sure that you get that email notification that we set up. In this case, I'm just going to go ahead and set this up as a new contact. So let's put Brad Pitt. This is going to be over here. Let's go ahead and put Brad Pitt's phone number, just like that. That's not going to be a real number. It's not going to let me go through here. Let me see. There we go. Okay. And then this is going to be bradpitt@gmail.com. And then I confirm right over here, and then I schedule a meeting. Okay, now I don't know if this is going to be actually go to Brad Pitt's email here, but what I want to show you is if I now go back and I come back over here to this tab that we're here, right? And then I go over into enrollment history. Look at that. It did in fact fire. So it does show me that Brad Pitt has been enrolled inside of this, and it has finished as well, which means that it has gone ahead and finished the workflow automation. And the execution log, it'll show me exactly what it did over here, right? So Brad Pitt entered into the workflow, and then it sent him the email, and then it removed him from the workflow because of the fact that he already finished going through the workflow. And so if I want to see if that email actually went through, guess what I can do? I can come over here. I can go back and go over to my contacts. I should see Brad Pitt has been added into my CRM, my contact management system. I can click on that. And then guess what? I should be able to go ahead and see right over here. It should show me that exact email. And check this out. This was our custom value. Hi, Brad, right? Remember that custom value we set up? This is, now it didn't put any name over here because of the fact that, why didn't it do that? Let me go ahead and check over here. So it didn't put username. I don't know why I didn't put the username, but in that case, I would just go ahead and make sure that in the future it's just John Doe. Oh, the reason why I didn't put a user, I understand why I didn't put a user, is because this is an appointment that Brad Pitt booked on his side. So I don't have a setting set up so that way it automatically puts John Doe, the username, attached to that appointment. So that's probably the reason why it didn't attach it there. Okay, so that makes sense now. I understand why the system do that. And then your appointment is on, and then it has the exact time. Talk to you then. Now, what you will see is that this did not go through. It says that the email account that you tried to reach does not exist. Well, who knew? Who knew that Brad Pitt's email is not actually bradpitt@gmail.com? Okay, so obviously this is the reason why you want to make sure that you are testing for yourself that is an actual email. Okay, so in this case, bradpitt@gmail.com is not a valid email. It does not actually exist, and that's the reason why this did not go through. So you want to make sure that you are testing this so you can actually see if the email gets delivered, does it end up in spam, all of the business sending options that we've helped you walk through before. And then obviously if things are working very well, hey, post that win in the community. Let people know, hey, this training is still active. It still works. Woohoo, we should celebrate that, right? But if it didn't work, make sure you are also posting in the community, letting the community know, hey, this training, I tried it. It didn't work for me. What's going on? So that way the entire community, that's where the most recent learnings are happening around what is working and what is not working. What you will also notice here on the right side, it does also give me the log of all the activities that Brad Pitt took inside of the system in terms of visiting a page, what time he visited the page, what time he booked the appointment, as well as the actual appointment that was booked as well. How cool is that, right? So that's how all of these automations work because of the fact that we built this out here. It registered the trigger, and then it sent Brad Pitt the email there, and it did also go ahead and use the custom values there. We did go ahead and show you the enrollment history. It shows you everything there, the execution logs as well, and then also the settings in terms of what that looks like there. And then, like I said, if you do want to go ahead and test a workflow, you can always use this test workflow option here. But the difference is that if you test a workflow using this option here, obviously no appointment has been booked. And so when no appointment has been booked, that's where this time is not going to show up inside of the email because obviously when you're testing it from here, it's not like an appointment was booked. And so that's the reason why a time doesn't show up. If that doesn't make any sense to you, trust me, the more you play around with it, it will make sense over time as you get more and more used to creating automation. So we talked about draft versus publishing. We talked about testing the workflow and the button via that, the enrollment history. We talked about the execution logs as well. And then the last thing I want to go ahead and show you here is I'm going to go ahead and name this very quickly just as a test so it's easy for me to find. I'm just going to call this Brad Pitt real quick. You don't have to do this, but I'm just going to go ahead and call this Brad Pitt here real quick because what I want to show you is if I go back, and let me actually just save real quick and then go back. And then if I search over here and type in Brad, it'll show up right here. And then you'll see it does show me how many people totally have been enrolled inside of this workflow right over here. And then also has the active enrolled, meaning how many people are actively involved. So right now there's 0 because Brad Pitt did finish that workflow. And then the total enrolled right here, I can actually go ahead and click on that 1 and it'll actually take me directly to the enrollment history there and show me who were the people who were actually inside of the workflow at a certain time, right? So that's all the cool stuff related to actually building and creating the workflow. Okay, so now again, I would recommend, this is not even just a recommendation, this is like a requirement that you need to make sure that you actually go in and build the exact workflow that we walked you through inside of this training, and then go out there and actually test it. Look at the enrollment history, look at the execution logs, actually go out and test the test workflow and see, hey, coach told me that this is what happens. Let me see, how does it actually work, right? Test the custom values, go out there and see if you get the email, try different triggers on here as well if you really want to do so that way you can see, hey, how does all of this work? Because I promise you, you are not going to learn if you just sit there and be like a entrepreneur, a failure uniform student who doesn't actually take the action. The professional entrepreneurs, the one who actually succeed, don't only get the knowledge, but they do the reps, they do the tinkering, they do the clicking around over and over and over again, because the more reps you get, then that is going to allow you to get the skill, right? Because if you have knowledge 1 times reps 0, anything times 0 is just 0. But the more reps you have, that is going to equip you with the skills you need in order to make sure that you are successful with the business. Okay, now in terms of specific automations, I did mention that this was the in general automations. Now we're going to go ahead and in the future, in the upcoming training sections, in just a little bit, walk you through the specific actual automations as well. However, we are not done yet. We still have to talk about how to manage automations and then how to create different specific automations as well. So make sure you are following along inside of the training. We're not done yet. Keep the momentum going. You're doing a phenomenal job. I know, hey, this is the foundations. These are the ABCs. I promise you this is going to pay off. We will catch you in the next training section.